to give my two penneth about our new Prime Minister. What a series of events, eh? Yeah, so I was watching yesterday as he was essentially parachuted into number 10, essentially uncontested. And if you know the history of Rishi Sunak, there's a great video. I might well put a link to it in the notes below. He went to Stanford, basically. I think he was educated at Oxford. And he was at Stanford with one of the World Economic Forum young leaders, someone who's quite high up currently quite high up in the World Economic Forum. And it was at Stanford that he met his wife, who is the daughter of the Infosys entrepreneur, an Indian guy, I forget his name. So he married into this extremely rich Indian family and then came back to the UK, had a meeting with David Cameron. The suspicion is that there was a large party donation and he was given the opportunity to stand in the very safe seat, a seat up in Yorkshire, which was previously William Hague's seat. So an extremely safe seat, so it was a dead certain bet that he would get in, and he became, so Rishi Sunak became an MP, I think in 2015, and obviously he then became Chancellor in February 2020 and is now Prime Minister. So he's basically only been in politics, I don't know, 7 years or something. No doubt whatsoever that he is part of the World Economic Forum elite. And the thing that really interested me about yesterday as I was watching was the timing of it, because it all happened. He went to the palace at about sort of 11:30 and then came back to number 10 and did a speech on the steps. And all this was happening during the new moon. And then pretty much as the moment of the solar eclipse yesterday, which was 12 noon, that was the moment when he stepped foot in number 10. Very interesting timing, especially because it's also during the festival of Diwali. Now, Rishi Sunak is a practicing Hindu. I know a little bit about Hinduism because my first husband was a Hindu. I had a whole Indian wedding. His name was actually Lakshmikant because he was born on Diwali on the 8th of November, interestingly, which is the next eclipse is on the 8th of November, which is a lunar eclipse. And so Lakshmi is the goddess of prosperity and abundance. So you often see pictures of Lakshmi with sort of money pouring, gold coins pouring out of her hand. But she's very much more about, she's like the Empress in the tarot. She's very much about material realm abundance because, of course, all prosperity is rooted in Mother Nature, in the fruits and the sweets and the delicious offerings of Mother Nature, which is the source of all prosperity, in truth. And so it's very interesting that solar eclipse, where essentially the moon, it was a partial solar eclipse, so the moon went in front of the sun and blocked out the sun's rays, even though partially, and it was conjunct Venus. So essentially what you had yesterday was an alignment between the sun, the moon, and Venus was aligned to the new moon. So in that combination, essentially you had the three faces of the goddess, the three faces of Hecate. So you had the mother, which is Mother Earth, the crone, which is Grandmother Moon in shamanism, Grandmother Moon, and the maiden, which is Venus. So Mother, Maiden, Crone, those are the three faces of Hecate. But when you look at all of the symbolism and the imagery of yesterday and compare it to Liz Truss going to see the Queen to be the PM, compare that picture with the picture of Rishi Sunak and Prince Charles, not Prince Charles, King Charles now, allegedly King, has proclaimed himself King, if you consent to that, of course. Essentially, what we had, and also when Rishi Sunak went to number 10, he was alone. didn't have his wife with him, probably for political reasons, because of the scandal around her not being a taxpayer and being so the daughter of a billionaire, basically, and him being part of the elite, essentially. Kobe's stopping me here. So you had a Hindu in the festival of Diwali, without the goddess, going to see the king, because the queen is obviously no longer, and this total absence of the divine feminine, in essence, during this very sacred Hindu festival. So it felt to me like there was a tremendous symbolism, it felt to me, and this is just my humble opinion, my humble observation and knowing the metaphysics of these things, that it was an assertion of the patriarchal system. It was assertion of the yang masculine, essentially, that solar power which was being eclipsed. Now, I don't know if you remember about Charles and Camilla's wedding. Original wedding was planned for a solar eclipse, and they actually changed the date because they basically said it's a very, very bad astrology for a future king to marry on a solar eclipse, because essentially it's the power of the sun, the power of the grandfather sun, which is the yang masculine being put out. Now, we're headed to the second eclipse, which is on the 8th of November. So this is with the sun is opposite the moon, and it's in Scorpio Taurus. It's in the life and death axis of the astrology. So this, and it's deeply transformational. And of course, on a lunar eclipse, that's when the Earth comes between the sun and the moon, and it blocks out the rays, the solar rays, from the moon, and so the moon is shrouded in darkness. So it essentially loses its connection or the power over of the sun, because obviously the sun normally is constantly streaming its rays of light onto the moon, which is reflecting them back to Earth.